Hello and welcome to Soundwave, your music feature here on the Lifeguard. I'm your co-host Boden.
And I'm your co-host Finn.
Today we're going to be doing a little year-end recap of our top albums of 2023, which in my opinion was like an amazing year for music, so I'm really excited to get into it. This episode is actually being filmed during Film Club, so if you have any interest in like mass communications or visual media in general, stop down after school Thursdays. What's in room 7? We hope to see you there. All right, let's get right into it. Starting with some honorable mentions. You can go first with some of yours.
All right, so in my honorable mentions, I really focused on how this year we really got some really great hip-hop rock fusions. Some of the best that I think has come out really ever. First, we got Lil Yachty's Let's Start Here, which I really think is just a really cool stylistic change for him. He was kind of stagnating in a weird just kind of space where he was in some cloud rap stuff. But then I don't know where he came out with this great psych rock album with some really catchy tracks like Pretty and Drive Me Crazy. Had some really awesome killer psych rock production from some of the members of Pink Floyd and just some really great stuff in there. Also, I put Tizo Touchdown's How Do You Sleep at Night, which was a really cool, super eccentric fusion of indie rock and R&B, which really surprisingly came out as his debut LP, even though he was like a really big up-and-comer in the hip-hop scene before that. Both these albums were really enjoyable, and in both cases, I think both the artists show like a lot of potential in this sound. And Lil Yachty's definitely moved on to do some more psychedelic trap stuff. He's released some singles over the past year after this album. But Tizo Touchdown, he shows a lot of promise, and I like really think that as he fleshes out the sound that he showed on that album, like I really look forward to hearing from him in the future.
Yeah, I would say like the same for me, especially with Tizo Touchdown. Like a lot of potential for like first like LP like that. Like I don't know, it's really eccentric and really cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, my picks as well are two albums that I think show a lot of potential. One that like already has a lot of praise, which is
Census Designated
by Jane Remover, an album that when I listened to, I wasn't blown away by. I thought it was a bit boring. It's a definite like stylistic change for Jane, coming from a more hyperpop background, and this album being definitely shoegaze and definitely like indie rock. I think lyrically it's gorgeous. I just wish there was a little bit more variety on the album. It sort of goes into like feeling kind of uniform as the
it
track
gets sort of
goes.
monotonous.
Yeah, I would say so. But I've listened 3 times, and I think it's good. It doesn't hit me like it does other people, but I think it's definitely still a must listen for 2023, and I'm really excited to see where Jane goes from here. There's also a new Andre 3000 album, which is crazy, because like I don't know, this album's so fascinating. It's called New Blue Sun. It's a little bit of like atmospheric, folk-inspired flute and woodwind music, which is so interesting. With like how illustrious Andre 3000 has been in like the last few years, like being his first solo project and first like full-length output since I think 2003. I'm happy to see that like he's passionate about putting out music again, and I'm really interested to see where he goes moving forward, if he's going to stick with like this more atmospheric sound or if he's going to push something new. Yeah. So some dishonorable mentions. You can start.
Okay. So I had 2 albums in my dishonorable mentions. My first one is The Maybe Man by AJR, which I think is one of the most horrendous pop records I've ever listened to in my entire life. It's 3 guys, and they're just trying desperately to make music for just an Old Navy commercial or something. This album is really no different from any of the other music that they've put out. It's just whiny and uninspired vocals over really over-commercialized pop instrumentals, and there's just really nothing special about it, and it's pretty rough. My second record was If Looks Could Kill by Destroy Lonely. Destroy Lonely and the rest of the Opium Crew, which is Playboy by Cardi's label, they just continue to really just copy anything he does and just trying their best to squeeze as much as they can from the one rage song that anyone in that label can write. And with this record just really being the culmination of that this year, it had just really bland production, and every song is just so forgettable that they blend into each other, and it's just a really boring album.
I would say the same for All the Dogs by Drake. It's just more Drake. We reviewed it on the show. My feelings haven't changed. It's 90 minutes of monotony, of meandering filler, and it's just so soulless. Same with Ed Sheeran's Autumn Variations. Definitely monotonous and uninspired, and I hate it. But there is one album in my dishonorable mentions that I think shows potential but isn't there, and that's Blanket by Kevin Abstract. I still kind of am a huge Brockhampton fan, and Kevin being like the frontrunner of the group for so long, like and being so like such a good hook writer and really makes like really catchy music. This album is very forgettable, like super duper forgettable. There's some moments that are like really really special, I would say, and the intro track I like. I just think a lot of it is misguided, and I think something needs to change for his next project to be better. So yeah, we can get in the top 10 now. The top 10 for 2023.
The top 10.
Okay, so liars. This episode was way too long when we did like each of our individual top 10 lists. So I'm gonna go through our picks for top 10 through 6 really rapidly between the both of us. So Finn had Did You Know There's a Tunnel Under Ocean Boulevard by Lana Del Rey. I had Live at Bush Hall, Black Country New Road for that's number 10. Voir Dire, Earl Sweatshirt and the Alchemist. This Land is Inhospitable and So Are We, Mitski. I Care So Much That I Don't Care at All, Glaive. Maps, Billy Woods and Kenny Siegel. Utopia, Travis Scott. Coranta, Danny Brown. Guts, Olivia Rodrigo. And Dog's Body, Model Actress. Carry on with the episode.
All right. At my number 5 spot, going into the top 5, I had Girl with Fish by Feeble Little Horse. This I never heard of Feeble Little Horse before this record, to be fully transparent. But it's a great record. It's a super tight and short indie rock album with some shoegazy elements thrown in, some really catchy choruses, and just killer performances from all the members in the band. It's really distorted, and it's got a great sort of late 90s throwback sound with an awesome vocalist. Songs like Sweet, in particular, have like some really cool guitar riffs that just really never leave your head. It's an awesome album.
Yeah, I would say for like Feeble Little Horse, like the riff work on that album is just like, I don't know, it like the guitar is almost as catchy as the vocals are.
Honestly, it gets stuck in your head. It's great.
My 5th pick is Hearthroom by experimental hyperpop siblings Frost Children. Frost Children are actually a band that I found out about from doing this show, and they released an album in like mid-November that crushes my expectations. They released an album earlier this year called Speedrun, and this album is works as like a double album with Speedrun, which is really interesting because it's a really big change in their sound, going from more like hyperpop, like what they've been like known for, into more of like a sort of like Midwest emo-y indie rock kind of realm. Super, super interesting, so catchy. There's like a really consistent spirit and lightheartedness throughout that I think is super special. And tracks like Bernadette and Birdsong and Offer My Love are just like 3 little love ballads that are just so pretty coming from the two. And I'm so excited to hear what Frost Children has going in store forward. Going forward.
At my 4th pick, I had Hyperpop Legends return to the music game, 100 gecs with 10,000 gecs. This record it sees the outfit returning after 4 years with just a new super experimental and really abrasive just fusions of pop and electronic and metal and even ska at some bits.
That's crazy.
It features everything from bangers like Hollywood Baby to ska tracks like Frog on the Floor, which are just really fun. They clearly don't take themselves all that seriously, but even with that, the songs are just great. They're super catchy. They've got great performances from Dylan Brady, producer and just guitarist, and some awesome stuff in there, as well as vocalist Laura Less. And it's a great record. Super abrasive, super loud, but also super fun.
That's so interesting that you put 10,000 Gex as your fourth pick, which is like from a band that doesn't really take themselves very seriously. Because my fourth pick is Saved by Reverend Christian Michael Hayter, which is the most difficult listen and like so
Honestly,
it's like
it's hard.
Yeah, especially like contextually speaking for Christian Michael Hayter, like previously known as Lingua Ignota. It just has like super heavy, disturbing production with a lot of like devout and like damning religious imagery. This album works as a reinvention for Hayter after the abuse that she endured by ex-boyfriend Alexis Marshall of Daughters. It comes as no surprise that she would want to move in a different direction coming out of that experience, and especially from her previous work as Lingua Ignota. That direction being contemporary horror gospel. It's serene, it's horrifying, it's an infinitely important album in modern music that, while not for everyone, I think almost everyone should check it out and listen and just see what this album gives you, because wow, it's really hard to listen to, but it's gorgeous.
Yeah. At my number 3, I had this album right in front of me.
That album.
Wall Socket by Underscores. This is just an amazing record from April Walker. Oh my gosh. Okay. This is an amazing record.
April Harper Gray.
No. This is just an amazing record from April Harper Gray, or Underscores, that just contains amazingly glitchy and catchy hyperpop and indie rock tracks with just some really deep concepts. This album serves as a concept record following the town of Woonsocket, Michigan, and its inhabitants. Many of the songs in this album, like my favorite, Johnny Johnny, they managed to still be upbeat.
Johnny.
Oh, it's right in front of me. Many of the songs of this album, like my favorite, Johnny Johnny Johnny, managed to still be upbeat and catchy without removing the impactfulness of their difficult and just hard-to-stomach subject matter, especially on that song. But yeah, it's a great record. It's super loud and abrasive and experimental, but it also remains some like really great replayability factor. It was my top listened to album of the year.
It was mine as well.
So it's great.
Yeah, I definitely have a lot more to say about Woonsocket.
Yep.
My third pick, though, was Javelin by Sufjan Stevens. This album is dedicated to Sufjan's late partner, Evan Richardson, and it acts as like a grief-filled goodbye, which is like especially evident by the intro track, Goodbye Evergreen. There's like a feeling of like forward momentum throughout the track list, journeying through like hurt with like retrospective beauty. There's huge swells, bouts of sorrow, contrasted with Sufjan's account of like happy memories. There's a general feeling of like confliction throughout the album that is like conjoined with like a lot of tender production, which is like entirely by Sufjan himself. I think the best example of like the confliction present throughout the album is the sort of pseudo closer and climax of the album, Dish Talk. Which is a nearly 9-minute song that deals with the idea of acceptance and regret in a beautifully wrapped bow. And this album is topped off with a beautiful rendition of Neil Young's There's a World that I couldn't recommend enough. This album is so special, and I can't give like enough praise to it for like what it explores, especially for Sufjan after such a long wait since his last project, Carrie and Lowell.
Yeah, Sufjan's just one of those once-in-a-lifetime songwriters, and what he makes is just really beautiful a lot of the times.
Absolutely.
It's an amazing record.
Yeah.
At my number 2, I had The Record by Boy Genius. And across the year, this is like easily the top album for my rotation. I just listened to it pretty much the whole year it came out. earlier on. And the record, it's the brainchild of modern indie legends Phoebe Bridgers, Julian Baker, and Lucy Dacus. The three just spin beautiful harmonies across like really sweet tracks like Cool About It and Leonard Cohen, and they blend really nicely with some super awesome guitar from Julian on alternative tracks like $20 and Satanist. They're a great and amazing band that just really know how to make some awesome indie rock, and it's a great album.
You know, when I was in Boston, when I saw Death Grips, the next show at that venue was Boy Genius, which is really interesting.
Really?
Yeah,
That's cool.
so it would have been Death Grips and then Boy Genius like the day after. Anyways,
It's a weird combination.
So my second pick was Scaring the Hose by JPEG Mafia and Danny Brown. There's so much to say about this album, and we can talk about it forever.
Oh, we could.
It's bombastic. It's in your face. It's an eclectic masterpiece. It is the hip hop album of the 2020s, at least right now. And the production is amazing. Like even for Peggy standards, who is like one of the most like influential and prominent producers out right now.
Yeah, easily.
Like even that like it way surpassed my expectations. Coming from someone who is like a huge Peggy fan and a huge Danny Brown fan, like having this album surpass my expectations is just wild. And having this album be so good and not be my number one pick is insane. But it is your number one pick.
It is my number one pick. Yeah, Scaring the Hose. It's easily the best to come out of hip hop in the last few years. It's just two of the game's most eccentric MCs, like from their respective generations, just blended to a super brash and even thought-provoking record.
Oh yeah.
It serves as a commentary on the over-commercialization of hip-hop in the 21st century with people like Drake and just other like
Jack Harlow gets a
rap.
mention.
Yeah, Jack Harlow who gets a whole song dedicated to him. And Peggy provides just amazing production, and there's just huge bangers on songs like Perfect and Kingdom Hearts Key. It's an amazing album and like one of my favorites ever, honestly.
Yeah, it's definitely an album where like every song I could see being someone's number one pick.
Yeah,
because your two favorite songs are not even in like my top three of my favorite.
But they're so good.
But they're so good. Yeah, like I would play Kingdom Hearts Key like on repeat if I could. Like
God, the horns on
so
Perfect,
amazing.
I could hear all
yes,
day.
it sounds like football.
It does. It's great.
Oh, it sounds like I'm cracking open a beer and sitting on the sofa.
Honestly, it's just an amazing album, and it's just one of my favorites.
Yeah, my favorite track is probably like Garbage Pail Kids,
That's
or
great,
the
too.
closer where you get your Coke from. Oh my god.
Yeah. And even the DLC pack.
Oh my God,
bonus, EP that they released was honestly just as good as the album. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I definitely think like people, if you're gonna check it out with the DLC pack, which is just like a little EP that they added.
I would love to see more from these two in the future, just because they've got great chemistry and they're just amazing. Yeah.
Okay, closing it out. My number one pick is Wall Socket by Underscores. Right there. It is the hyperpop rock opera. I've never heard an album that is so layered and so energetic and so thematically resonant and like queer. Like, oh my god, it's perfect. And it features a lot more depth than what you would expect from the surface going into it. Like certainly my first listen, I didn't know like how deep a lot of these tracks went in creating like a really holistic idea. And it being a concept album, like that's kind of what you want to go for. But yeah, and there's so much like supplementary content with this album too. Like there's an entire ARG that April Harper Gray put out like leading up to the album's release, like where you can like gather more tidbits about like the storyline. But that's not really like what's on display here. What's on display is the incredible production in the memorability of each and every one of these tracks is like off the charts. It's so emotional and it's so soulful. I don't know. For this album, April Harper Gray changed her style a little bit by writing each song acoustically and then adding the production later, which is really interesting.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's
cool. Which is why this album has a folky feel to it with a lot of the guitar work. yeah, coming from like Fishmonger or like Fearmonger, 2 LPs from Underscores previously, which are a lot more electronic. This album is super electronic, and it's hyperpop.
It is.
But yeah, I would say that those albums are like more traditional compared to Wall Socket in their production. Like there's a lot of contrast between like blaring synths and like soft guitar. There's huge switch ups like in each track. Like there's at least like 3 or 4 like huge changes and like swells, and it makes it's such an interesting listen. I would say if you're gonna listen to this album, I would obviously recommend listening to it in its entirety. But if I were to pick one song that is like a this is it song, it's Uncanny Long Arms with Jane Mover.
Easily.
Yeah,
It's the best song there. Yeah.
it's
good.
amazing. It's the emotional climax of the album. It's catchy, it's gorgeous, and there's a moment at the later half that harkens back to some of Underscore's earlier music, with a verse from Kinko's Field Trip 2006, which was on Fishmonger, and that moment gives me goosebumps every time I listen. The entire album, I had ever since I listened to it, like 3 or 4 months ago, has been on repeat. It's so incredible. It's so incredible.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. Especially Uncanny Long Arms, which I think honestly is like the better output of Jane Weaver in this year, even though she put out an album. But yeah, there's that one part at the end of Uncanny Long Arms, and just like the last minute, I think it is, that just hits, and it's just so good. I could listen to that minute of that song like all day.
Oh yeah,
and it's just so good. It's just a perfect build up and release, and it's an amazing song and an amazing album. It's great.
Yeah, I literally have nothing but praise. I would say like a majority of my top 10 lists have been 10 out of 10 albums, which is crazy for a year of music. Like I think 2023 I think 2023 has been super duper special. And I'm excited to see what comes out of 2024, especially from like the artists mentioned between us. Like there's so much interesting things to come, I would say. So yeah.
Yeah, totally.
If you'd like to listen to a playlist of our picks for our favorite songs of the year, a playlist will be linked in the description and on screen somewhere with the little Spotify thing. But yeah, otherwise, thank you for listening. Soundwave is going to be going under some revisions going into the new year. A lot more short form content being put out a lot more rapidly. So not huge episodes like it was before. That take way too long to put out. And
lots of different type of content too.
Yeah.
Some cool stuff that's underway that will come out soon enough.
Yeah.
Eventually.
We'll get it done at some point. But yeah, thanks for watching.
Yep.